Hey guys, thank you for joining us for another exciting episode of YOML. This is the Year of Magical Learning podcast. Today we have a special podcast session. Chris, as you can tell from his background, he's not in his usual office,
Yeah,
so he's
we're
out
in
there
Indiana.
showing us the livelihood of Indiana at its finest. So, but
Yep.
today we're doing part 4 or 5 of the book How to Think Like a Monk, and I think you know what we mean by that. But let's get to it. What you got, Chris?
Yeah. The reflection for this part 4 or 5 is preach the gospel at all times and when necessary, use words. This is something that I've had to learn pretty dramatically over the past couple of years, right? You and I know living for two and all these different things and whatever your purpose, anything that we're doing every single day, like you and I know what we're doing and we don't mind talking about that, right? This is what this podcast is. We talk about what matters in this life and living a life of values and purpose and learning together and bringing that out into a conversation. Unfortunately, though, like this isn't just some game. We're not playing around. We're not out here trying to be some expert to make money from somebody or whatever. We're not trying to be this social media influencer. We're not trying to do anything other than just be ourselves and live our lives and bring out the values that we care about most in what we do and say. And one of the lessons that I've had to really stomach a lot. One of these lessons I've had to take on the chin, I guess, if you will, over the past couple of years is, after Amelia had passed away, and the first 6 months or so of my life after that was lost and had no idea what I wanted to do and reevaluating life and trying to figure out like what mattered, what didn't matter. And, slowly but surely after, figuring out through writing the first book and you and I conversations and the club and conversations and other things that we started doing together, started to become a little more clear, right? And that accumulation of all those different events and day in day out of living your values and your purpose every single day, started to compound and to the point in time where like one of the things that I've always struggled with is when somebody ever asks you like what's going on these days. You and I talk about this every day. Almost when I ask you like, hey, how is the day, and you're like, oh, nothing happened, but I know a lot of things happen.
This is what I'm saying is the things that you do, the things that's important to you, this is supposed to be on top of your mind. For
Right.
me, right, my top of the to-do list is nothing. That's my that's a good day for me. If your
Right.
day is filled with like, hey, I want to be, socializing, then if you say nothing, then something's wrong with you. Wait, because that's not you. That's not you. And so that's the thing is, whatever you do, I mean, the reflecting titles say preach the gospel at all times. I'm saying that if you don't talk about the things that are important to you, it's not important to you.
So as our journey has progressed, as the year of magical learning, this isn't just a year of magical learning, to be fair. This is a lifetime of magical learning. This is multiple years of accumulation of knowledge and conversations and getting down on the valley floor and mixing it up and seeing what happens and doesn't happen that results in these reflections every single day. And the truth of the matter is early on, when somebody would ask me, like, what is all this stuff you're doing? I would start to want to explain, but the more and more that I even tried, I was like, you're not going to understand and you don't really care, to be honest with you. Nobody is going to sit there and give me 8 hours of their time to explain all this journey that you and I have been on and all this journey that Amelia and I have been on and all the stuff that's gone on over the past few years and all the stuff that I wanted to come in my life. It made me think about this quote when I was reading this book, and they mentioned this quote in the book as well. And it's really, I stopped talking about it, honestly. Like, I don't, whenever somebody asks me, like, where does this come from or why am I doing XYZ? Unless they, like, I can tell when nobody really wants to know and when somebody doesn't really want to know. So what I do now is, you can preach the gospel without speaking, and that's by living a life of values and living a life of action and doing the stuff that you say that matters to you most. Those are the things that ultimately people end up seeing me do now, and then they ask me, what is this about? Like, why are you doing why are you posting all these things on LinkedIn or something like that? Why are you, what is this podcast that you and True are doing every single night? Like, what is Clubbany or something along those lines? When they ask me this stuff, then I go, oh, okay, now we can actually have a conversation, right? Because it was my actions that led them to want to inquire about what I'm doing, not just the casual, like, you meet somebody at a party and they're like, so what's new these days? Like, it's the people that see your actions every single day that ultimately they get curious about it, and then they want to know, and then you can talk about it, right? Then you have everybody has the free license to say what they want to say, but it came from your actions. It didn't come from your words. Like, people can say whatever the hell they want to say, but it's when you're living your values every single day, and it's coming out in the activities that you do and the meaningful work that you produce, that others start to then take notice and then want to ask questions. And that's what I want to start the conversation for. So that was the quote from St. Francis of Assisi. It was, preach the gospel at all times, but when necessary, use words. Like, you and I don't really need to talk about what clubbing is. Like, you want to know what clubbing is? Like, there's plenty of meaningful work that we produce that you could go do your own exploration and then come back to us and ask us a poignant question about what is this and why do you guys think this way or something like that. Then we could probably talk, right? Like, but you get my point, I think. So anyway, love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think this goes back to what we're saying. You have to be authentic. And if you're not authentic, because when you go to a social setting, people ask you, hey, how's it going? What's the highlight of your day? They're not being authentic. They just want to be polite, right? Because you and I both know they don't want to hear the things, they don't care. But the thing is, this is what we're saying is, I don't want to be a philosopher. I want to be a practitioner. Meaning that, the same thing with you saying preach the gospel at all time, meaning live the values that you believe in, and not to say, I don't talk to anyone who doesn't have an interest. But if they have an interest, I would talk to that person all day. Only if they have a genuine interest. Because, if you live your core value or you practice your core value, people are going to have a genuine interest. And then that's when it is exciting and very interesting to have a conversation. But when somebody goes and say, hey, how's your day? Right? What do you do? What is this company? They don't give a shit. They're just being polite.
It's a selfish machine. I mean, like, let's call it what it is. They care about themselves, and that's what they care about, and that's fine. There is no meaningful work for us to connect on, right? There is no meaningful relationship.
We don't talk about it,
right?
Because there's no need to waste effort and say, hey, I have all the blah blah blah. So what's the point? Hey, you're just doing lip service.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
And it feels weird. You think about it. If somebody's not receptive of the idea of what you're trying to do, it seems weird because there's not a connect. If you talk to me and I go, okay, can you have a conversation with me? If you talk to me and I'm not, right? I'm not listening. So there's no point. You're going to stop talking because the thing is, we have the EQ, right? The EQ that we have. We can sense when someone's not interested. And we even know when someone's not interested, even before we speak, right? They can say, hey, how you doing? Any interesting? What's your highlight of the day? Blah. There's a bunch of life hacks that people tell you, but I can tell you that if I lie to you, you can tell. If I were not interested, you can tell, because if you say something in a different meaning, and I go out into another tangent, I may use the same word, but I'm on a different tangent. Maybe we're talking about addiction, right? Let's say we're talking about addiction. Addiction for us. For me and you, we understand addiction isn't a good thing or a bad thing on in itself, right? But I can say just addiction is a bad thing, right? Or I can talk about addiction that is like alcoholic or blah, blah, and go down this tangent when you're trying to say, like, addiction could be a good thing where you are very committed and passionate about the things you do, and you love it so much, it becomes a quote addiction. So in the context of something we say, it has the receptivity. Without his receptivity, this guy doesn't. He just spouting nonsense to you, and the conversation becomes boring because your brain.
It's a meaningless conversation. I'm okay with meaningless conversation if you know that it's meaningless conversation. But if you're trying to make a meaningless conversation meaningful, then that's forcing it. It comes across as preachy. It comes across as holier than thou. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be lectured. Like, here's how you live a life of purpose or something like that. That's not even what we're trying to say. It's like, this is how we are living a life of purpose. I'd love to share that with anybody. But the truth is, not everybody wants to hear that. They don't. And I'm not offended by that. I don't want to hear about my daughter or how she's changed my life or where all this stuff came from. This is one of the reasons why, I've told you this many times already, but it's worth reiterating. I actually don't really like talking about I Can't Imagine. Honestly, it's awkward for me these days. Whenever somebody reads the book and they want to talk about it, I'm like, I don't really want to. You guys read what I wanted to write.
Because like I say, it's not genuine. But you think about it. Let's say I read the book, right? And then I ask the question, what happened? Can you tell me what happened? They say, fuck, read the book.
I want to talk about it.
The thing is, unless there's something specifically in the book that you don't understand or you didn't cover, then ask for the specific. Then I think it is very, very natural for you to elaborate on it. But if I go to you say, hey, I read your book, it's a great book, right? What am I saying? I said nothing. There's no,
Right.
I mean, I did not read your fucking, thing is, I did not even fucking take the time to read the book, because the book spells everything out and you see everything. So when you connect with you, right? If I have to say, hey, Chris, tell me about your daughter. What do you want me to say to you? Right? Ask
Right.
me something specific. And to me, that's why it's awkward, because it's not genuine. So somebody pretends to care, quote unquote care, and they say, hey, it's a moving story, Chris. What do you want the other person to say to you? Hey, it's a great book. Okay, it's inspiring. That doesn't equate to anything in my mind, because these are just
Not at all.
concepts
Yeah.
that is like I said, and we talk about the remembering self and the experience self, right? Because if you're trying to wrap a concept up, like I told you, hey, I had fun on Sunday,
Mhm.
that could mean a million things, or could mean nothing. But I
Right.
say,
Yeah. You're
hey,
right. Very
I
true.
did this, I did that. So that's more something specific. So to me, that's
Right.
why when somebody has a conversation with you that doesn't have a genuine interest, then our EQ kicks in and gives you that sense, hey, this is a bunch of BS. So that's why it feels weird. So for me
Right.
and you, we talk about Amelia all day long.
I love to talk about Amelia. I mean, like
But
I will
that's what I'm
talk
saying.
about it all
It
day,
has a
every day.
genuine interest in that
Right.
and understand the background story, then it is engaging. But if it's not, somebody is trying to be nice or be polite or trying to start conversations or whatever, you ask me a generic question like, okay, it's good. Tell me a bit more. Okay. In what way you want me to tell more?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And then
Exactly. No.
and then if I don't say anything more insightful into that, well, you don't understand what I'm trying to say. Then the
Right.
conversation ends right there. So I think that's where I basically say, I'm not going out there, and this is what I told you before. I mean, I don't really care. I don't want to tell anyone about anything unless you ask. I'm not going.
Which leads to meaningful work, which means to which leads to a meaningful relationship. You got to actually care about what you're asking. There's nothing that I hate more than when somebody asks me a question when they don't want to know the answer. One of my best friends, his name's Kevin. I love him like to death. I've known him since I was like 5 years old. And Kevin's like genuinely one of the nicest people you will ever meet in your life. However, he loves to have everybody love him. And he's developed this skill, if you want to call it, of whenever he's around people, he really tries to dive in deep as to something he tries to find a connection point between people. So he always ends up asking questions, which is great. Like once again, there's nothing wrong with any of this stuff. I've seen this in social settings with him so many times where I'm like, what, Kevin, why are you trying to get to know this person so much? Like these questions just feel so forced. And I get why he wants to make that he's trying to make that connection and he loves to make a connection with people. Like that's his meaningful work. It was making connections with people. But I'm sitting there.
It seems forced, don't you think? I mean,
It
I've been
does
to
to
the
me.
end
Yeah.
to many of these conversations where it's like it's not natural. I just feel
Right.
weird. I mean, I feel weird answering this question, saying like, you shouldn't be answering this question.
I mean,
I think everybody
you
has
have
a
to
sense.
genuinely, the questioner has to genuinely have an interest in what you want to know. And the only way that you have a genuine interest in what you want to know is if you either see them do something or you read or consume something that was a byproduct of what they produced, right? Those two things are what prompts, in my opinion, genuine questions about people's lives. Like, how are you going to ask, if you and I just met on the street, what genuine question am I going to ask you? I would go, so you're Asian. So what's it like being Asian? And you would go, what the fuck does that even mean? And I'm like, I don't know.
Where did that come from?
That's all I know about you. It's like, I just met you for the first time and you're Asian. Where are you from? And you're like, oh, I'm from Houston. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, where you, like, what's Houston like? And you're like, it's a city. And I'm like, oh, okay. What do you do in Houston? We do stuff. And,
Exist.
like, and you're like, okay, so all right, what do you do for work? Well, I do stuff, and I make money, I guess, to support my life. And like, I mean, I'm not trying to be like, it's almost like a Bill Belichick, you ever seen like a Bill Belichick news conference afterwards when he's like super short, or like Greg Popovich when he'll give a press conference where they ask him like, what were your thoughts of the game today? We lost. Any other thoughts? We could do better. The truth is that they don't care.
And he doesn't care.
He doesn't care. He's like, I don't want to answer your question, and you don't want to even ask this question, but you get paid to do this, and I get paid to do this, so we're here to do this, so let's do this.
Strange. It's just like,
It feels.
for example, I know you're a good salesperson, right? And they say, hey, Chris, I want to pick your brain a little bit. Now I want to market a product, and can you show me how? And you ask me, what kind of product? Subscription product.
Something.
Right. The thing
Okay.
is, by what I'm saying to you, by what I'm responding to, I don't have the need to want to know the answers to this thing. I'm just trying to make a conversation because the thing
Right.
is, if I have a need, I have a specific product, I have a specific problem, it dives right into it. But a SaaS product or
Right.
blah. It's like you're trying to dodge the topic itself, and so when that happens, there is not a genuine inquiry. I don't have a genuine interest in learning.
Meaningful curiosity is what I'm going to call it.
Because it was authentic. Because you think about
Right.
it, if I have a specific problem that I'm trying to solve, then I'm going to go straight to it. Hey, I have this product. It does this,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. And I
I'm
can't
cool
get
with
this,
that.
blah, 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 right? And that means that I have a genuine interest in asking for your advice. But if I'm asking for, hey, you're expert, how would you sell me a pen? Right? So
I don't like pens.
I don't sell
I
pens.
don't use pens.
But
I don't use pens. I don't
But
like,
the thing is,
like, yeah.
this is me and you being authentic because I
Right.
would say, hey, why would I sell you a pen? I don't sell pen. But
Right.
in reality, people were trying to be polite and say, okay, well, pretend if you had to sell a pen, blah blah, and you kind of go through this and that.
I would ask him, do you need a pen? No. Well, then I'm not going to sell it to you. Like, okay, all right, have a good one. Do you
But
need a pen?
at the
All
end
right,
of the day,
here's a pen.
that conversation feels weird.
It does. It's oh my god, man! One of my former employees of mine that's become like a good friend of mine. His name's Nash. He's like, this guy is like legitimately like the most interesting man in the world kind of dude. Like he's been like a ballroom dancer, a rock quarry worker, top sales producer. He runs a roofing company. I mean, this guy's like a metrosexual farmer, redneck urban person. He's hilarious. Everything about him is just super unique. He's also very genuinely just a nice human being and always brings the best out in people in general. Sometimes when he drinks a little bit too much, his normal inner self comes out a little bit more, and he just, asks these, like some of these, the most ridiculous questions, or asks people to do the most ridiculous things sometimes. Anyway, long story short, Nash is a super unique, weird dude, right? But everybody loves him. But at the same time, he could quickly cross the line of, Nash, this isn't cool anymore, Nash. Stop it. One of these days in particular, I have a good friend of mine that I went to grade school with that I'm so friends with now. Her name's Lori, and she has a 20-year-old son. He is really, really good dancer, like a hip hop and contemporary dancer. He's been training in this stuff his whole entire life, and he's a professional dancer now. He does plays and teaches and he does choreography, and he's really, really, really good. This kid was down at my parents' lake house, and Nash was down there last summer. He was a little too drunk, and he was asking Isaiah, he was like an 18-year-old at that time, what do you do? And he was like, oh, I love to dance. And he was like, oh, you're a dancer. Well, then dance. It's like, I can't just dance, Nash. And he was like, but you're like a professional dancer. Just go do it. But he's like, I can't just do it. It was the most comical situation ever. This went on for like an hour of him going, just get up and dance. I'm a salesperson or something like that.
Send me now.
Go, Drew, just go code it. Just go code it out. It's fine. Just do it. And you're like, that's not how it works. Anyway, it's just funny.
Funny, yeah. Because I mean, it's awkward, right? Imagine being in Isaiah's shoe. It's
yeah. He was embarrassed. He's like, what is wrong with this guy? Like, I'm not a monkey. Like.
And then he doesn't give up. I mean, you have to talk for an hour. That means that he's not giving up. He wants to see this guy dance.
It was pretty funny though.
That's the thing. It's hard to end a conversation when you're trying to be polite, because the thing is, if you authentic, you say, "Look, I can't dance. Sorry, I don't really care if I disappoint you because it's not my prerogative, right? I don't care." So, but that's the thing is the reason why it continues on for the next hour is because they're trying to be polite. Say, I can't dance. You gotta find all these reasons why you can't dance, blah blah blah, and other people can find flaws in the reasoning, blah blah blah. So it's a whole hour of awkwardness. It's a whole hour of running for change. So for me, the thing is, I bet you Isaiah don't want to see Nash.
No, he doesn't actually. Every year, so we always have this like lake house weekend. Every year for the past it's almost been probably 8 years now. I've hosted a bunch of friends down at my parents' lake house, just commandeer the house for the weekend or whatever. And we just go down there and have a really good time. Nash is always one of those people that's down there with us. And Lori, Isaiah's husband, Isaiah's mother, we always invite her down. And she started probably coming maybe 5 years ago. So they've probably come the past 5 years. And Isaiah, he was coming back when he was 15, 16, 17 years old. And, the first couple of years that he met Nash, he was like, man, that guy's crazy. He would see us afterwards and he was like, what the hell's wrong with that guy? And eventually by the time that he got to be 18, that was when this whole thing happened. It was about I think this is 2 years ago, maybe, or last year. I can't remember. But no, it had to have been 2 years ago because last year, Lori was coming and Isaiah was at University of Alabama, is where he went to school for his freshman year. Lori had texted me like, "Hey, are we doing the lake house the weekend again?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Isaiah's going to be in town for summer. You know, he'd love to come down." And she was like, "Only if Nash isn't going to be there." And she, like, and,
Right, we're talking about the kids are scarred for life. I mean, it's an awkward conversation. It's difficult because people understand, people sense the awkwardness of the conversation, and so somebody's not going to connect. You cannot build meaningful relationship if that's where you start off with. Unless there is a genuine inquiry, then it's like a meaningful conversation. If there isn't a genuine inquiry, then everything else is just, to me, it's fake.
It's a waste of time is what it is. And honestly, like some people may argue that it's not because meeting people, you never know when, I don't know. I mean, we could argue about that if we want to, but at the end of the day, like the point of this reflection was, I'm tired of talking, like is the point. Like, I don't want to talk about living for two. I just do living for two. You know what I mean? And
because you have to do whatever that makes you, a happy person. Because you talk is not it's just basically pretending.
Well, do you remember Zach and Amber when Amber was telling us about her friends that she was like talking to about the core values quest and trying to get them to do stuff? And I was like, I think you probably did as well, where it's like you don't need to talk about this stuff with people. Like, just do it. And if they say, "Oh, that's interesting. What are you doing?" And you then talk about it. But like, you don't want to like just go walk into friend circles and be like, "Hey, I'm doing Whole30, or I'm doing, keto." You know how you know when you meet a CrossFitter?
Right.
The first thing, is all they talk about is CrossFit. Do you know how you know when somebody went to Harvard? It's the first fucking thing they'll tell you,
T-shirt.
Right. Yeah.
When I was at Harvard, I don't give a shit.
Right. No one cares, like, it's like, "Oh, hey, you drive a Tesla? Cool. Like, you have a car. I have a car too. Like, it goes from point A to point B. I don't really care what your car is, unless I've shown you in some way, shape, or form that I'm like big into cars. Then you could say, "Oh yeah, I've investigated a lot of cars. I drove a lot of cars, and here's how I decided on my Tesla. Like, what do you think about it as a car expert?" Like, that's a genuine question because you actually care about somebody. You have a meaning, and that could potentially produce a meaningful conversation.
Even in that conversation, it becomes pretentious because you like cars, but you don't have a problem.
Right.
Because if I ask you, Chris, you're a good salesperson. You've been doing sales for the next 20, 25 years, okay? Show me how to sell. Well, do I need to know how to sell? Unless I have a real problem, like, I'm losing money left and right. I need some help, right? And then I will, but that's genuine. But if somebody says, "I have a Tesla and my Tesla does this," right? It is a fucking problem that it annoys the heck out of me. Okay, you're an expert. Can you help me? That is a genuine inquiry. But if you say, "Hey, I love cars," you're a car expert, hey, what do you think about cars? That feels forced to me. What am I gonna say? If you ask me, "Hey, I'm a car expert," okay, what do you think about it? About what in particular?
What about coding? Yeah, like
what about it?
It's no different than asking somebody to dance. Like, you're like, "What kind of dance do you want me to dance? What kind of song do you want me to dance to? What kind of setting do I need to be in? Do I need enough space? Like, what do you want me to do?
Just dance.
Like, I mean, it's such a good point because it's not genuine unless you have a problem. The takeaway that I'm going to take from this conversation is if you have a genuine problem, that'll lead to a genuine question. That genuine question will lead you to seek out answers from people that genuinely could help you. And those people will genuinely want to help if you genuinely have a problem about something they can genuinely help about. And then therefore, all these things turn into meaningful work and meaningful relationships that spawn from that. But it all starts from actually having something that matters to you. I mean, it's really just to you. Don't ask me a question about, living a life of purpose unless you are trying to figure out how to live a life of purpose,
there's no need to, because you're not living for two. What's the purpose? Why am I asking? What's the why in it? Yeah. Unless I have a similar problem. I say, "Hey, Chris, I see you live this life, right? And I see the result that I want. I want to understand how to get from where I'm at to where you are." Right. That's a genuine inquiry. But the thing is, I can't go out there and say, "Hey, I'm the best salesman." I can go and tell you the best salesman, but the thing is, am I really a best salesman? I cannot say that I'm a best salesman unless I go out and sell. There's like results. There's like history of how I sold something, or whatever it is, because I can go and claim something. That's what I'm saying is, what you say is, you got to preach about gospel at all times, meaning you have to be a practitioner. Practitioner
Right.
say you do
Exactly.
you, right? And if somebody say, okay, there's something that I see in Chris that I like, and I want to be like that, right? Then there is gonna have this genuine inquiry. They say, hey, yeah, Chris, you are doing this. How are you doing it? Because I
Right.
have a similar problem. It may help me, because there is a desire to understand that specifically, versus just a polite conversation. Say, hey, I want to see, what make Chris sick. What? Okay, where do we start? Where do we end? There's nothing specific about asking somebody, hey, what you do, where you're from, go dance.
Right. Right. Yeah. 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 I
so
mean, you're
so
right.
so the
Like
thing
even
it's about being a practitioner. To me,
it
the
is
takeaway from this is, you practice what you believe.
words
That's
words
all
don't
you.
mean shit.
That's all
Is
you
what
need.
yeah, I agree. Words are worthless, and unless they're backed up by actions, and the actions is what appeals to yourself and anybody else as well. Like in terms of like if they want to learn, totally. I used to think people that talked. Now I don't want to discount talking, because like talking is important. Like I'm not saying that it's when necessary use words, right? Like when somebody
Well, the
really
thing is,
genuinely wants to
as I'm
know, I'm
saying,
I'm
is that
happy to
there's
talk.
two parts to this, right? The first part is preach the gospel at all time, meaning live the belief, and
Right,
then you use word if necessary. So the thing is, the words isn't the primary directive. The word is just a supporting directive, because the word elaborates on what it is you're doing. Because I can do certain things, but I mean, it's hard for people to understand what I'm doing unless they have the ability to say, well, I can lay it out for you. I can give you step by step of how I did, or where I came from, or my recount the history and the memories of how I got from point A to point B. So the
right,
word is only a supporting role. It is not the source of what you need to talk about, because you have to talk about something. You can't
right,
just talk about talk, right? It has to have some kind of a goal, a purpose, whatever that is. It is the primary objective. The words are just an elaborations of that concept, or whatever you wanna label it. But you cannot have the word without having the practice. So I agree with you in what you're saying is words is important, but it cannot go first.
yes, exactly. I think that's a great summary. I mean, I'm thinking as you were talking about stuff in the past, like if I were to go up to talk to Novak Djokovic about tennis, right? I would say like, hey, I play tennis, you play tennis. Like, how are you Novak Djokovic? And he would be like, I don't know what the fuck what does that even question mean? Like, I don't even know what that even means. Like, teach me how to be Novak Djokovic. I can't teach you how to be me. But if I went up to him and I said, hey, Novak, I struggle really bad when I'm at the baseline and I hit a good shot and I get my opponent on the run and get them into a defensive spot. When I'm coming in to try to take out a ball out of the air around the midcourt area, I feel like I always, am screwing. Like, how can I be in a better position at that? What do you do? How do you work through that? Because you make you look so effortless. And then he could give me guidance around that or something like that,
Right.
right? This is why I do how's your balance? This is why I do like, what's top of mind is the first question I ask him when I start my one-on-ones to them, because like they have to want to learn about something. I can't just come in there and say, hey, I prepared this whole big lesson for you to learn about, XYZ because I saw that you could improve skills in this area. Like, if they don't fucking care, then they're not going to fix it. If you don't care yourself, any question that you go ask of somebody else is worthless, honestly. If you don't care yourself, don't ask a question of somebody. If you don't really want to know the answer, don't ask it.
Right. And this is what I do too. When you go to a wedding or some kind of party, right? And you sit next to a bunch of strangers, what did you say? And what I do is, people strike this meaningless conversation. I don't say nothing. It's like, if there's something I'm interested in, I'll talk. If not, I just sit there. I was like, okay. Because I don't need to waste my time. I'm a jerk that way, but most people can't
I
be a
don't think I
jerk.
don't think you're a jerk. I think people that are just trying to force a conversation are jerks. Like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a
Because
delicate,
because to be honest, right? If I'm honest with myself, which is going to make me feel unstressed, right? I'm not stressed because I'm not saying something I don't mean. So I'm always calm and collected, because whatever I say, I mean it. So if you ask me a bland question, I'll give you a bland answer because that's the truth. There's nothing for me to say, okay, how's it being Asian? Oh, come up with, because how do you respond to that, right? Because it's not like there's something specific. So you're going to make up something, contradicts my value, which is being authentic, right? And being integrity. I can't just go and imagine some scenario and tell you, hey, Asian has its pros and cons. No, I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about Asian in general. I'm just stereotyping. So that conversation, to me, it's work. I don't know. If you have specific questions, I can't answer your questions. Most of the conversation ends right there because they don't have an interest anyway. So that's why I'm saying is my conversation with a lot of people is very short. It's probably like a one sentence answer. Like I'm almost like Bill Belichick.
I have further respect for Bill Belichick and Greg Popovich at that point in time because I think they genuinely know. Like, I guarantee you, I've heard Greg Popovich talk
as a contract with the NFL, with the media, they have to do the interview. And Belichick say, "I'm a coach. I don't need to go and pamper you guys with this thing, right?" So he said, "Well, we lost. What do you want me to say? I lost. I don't like it. What else can I say? When I'm not gonna sit there and make up some kind of story about how guys are having this excuse or that excuse or blah 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 blah.
Got to do better, or we don't. I mean, like it's yeah. I agree. I actually have way more respect after this conversation, for people like that because it's. I mean, to be fair, let's just be honest. Like Greg Popovich and Bill Belichick are two people, if I had to guess, probably live a life of purpose, and it's people like that that draw other people in and that want to ask them questions anyway, and if Bill Belichick were to sit there and explain to you all of his, philosophies every single day of what he's going to do and where areas he needed to focus on and how the do your job meant philosophy didn't work today or whatever, like they don't really want, he would have to unpack like 50 years of his life to give you an actual answer that he would probably be proud to say to somebody. And at that point in time, nobody really wants that answer. And like we're all going, Jesus Christ, is this guy going to shut up? Like, man, he just loves to hear himself talk, and you're like, you're the one that fucking asked.
People are fickle that way, right? I mean, you don't talk, they don't like it. You talk, they don't like it. It's like, it can't please you. It's like, why am I putting out the effort to try to please you? But at the end, you're gonna have some snub remarks about this and that and others. Like, well, I'm not gonna waste time with you. I have to be here. Okay, we lost. We gotta do better. Okay, next. What am I putting out effort for?
You're not.
Where is my reward, right?
There
isn't. So for me, the people who does that, right? Yes, it seems like a joke, but I don't care. I don't really care. I mean, for me, I have this reputation as black sheep already. And I like being there. I don't really care if you say, well, you're this person. Okay. I mean, what do you want me to say? I'm not. So for me is my life is like, I don't have a lot of worries. There's something I worry, but it's genuine. But the things that for me, you can't really peer pressure me into doing things. It's very hard. But you probably can, but it's very hard because I don't really care what people think, and that's the thing is because of my character. My character is like, if I were to fabricate something, it takes a lot of work for me to fabricate something and to tell you and keep up with the facade, right? I'd rather tell you the truth and tell you, hey, look, you don't have to like me. This is what I say. And for me, I completely forget it. Like I can tell you something that it hurts you for weeks. I'm over it in the next 2 seconds. I'm going to have lunch, whatever. It's like you can hate me and you can like have this grudge against me for years on, and I don't even know it. I don't even feel a single thing because why am I trying to, like, for me? That's what I told you before is it is okay to be misunderstood. And as a fact, for me, it's good to be misunderstood because I don't need to go out there and spend my effort to trying to correct your misunderstanding. Your misunderstanding is your fault, not my fault, because you judge me before knowing the information. So I don't care if you say, hey, True's an idiot, True's a bad person, True's this, and True. I don't care. True's a useless person, useless man. He's a bad person, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I can't control what you think. I can't go in there and correct you. Hey, Chris, no, I'm not a bad person. I'm an honest person, and I'll prove it to you. You have to take my word for it. You don't have to like it. I don't really
Right.
care if you don't think I'm an honest person. I say hi, I have a high integrity, right? And you say I don't believe you true. Okay. I'm not gonna prove to
Agreed.
you, right? And so that's the thing is there are certain things that is worth reserving your energy for. And there's certain things, most things are not. And so you get to the point where if you practice what you believe, that all that matters. And that is the beacon for the people to see you as who you are and be attracted to you as that character and want to say, well, I have a similar characteristic and I believe in similar core values. I want to see if I can learn from that. And that's where meaningful conversation becomes meaningful relationship. Meaningful relationship begets meaningful work. And I think this is what I'm preaching is just be yourself, because you basically are a beacon for people to say, hey, this person is like this, right? If
Right.
you wrap yourself in something else, then other people are going to mistake you for that characteristic and trying to attract and bond with that characteristic. And then later on, you unwrap it and then, oh, this is not what I want. And then they get mad at you, and then you waste your time and they waste their time, and this whole spiral out of control. But if you genuinely want to be who you are, for one, is you have peace of mind. You have this anchor in you that you don't have to worry about what people think. You don't have to worry about keeping up the facade. Because if I'm saying, hey, I'm not a good salesperson, right? No one's gonna ask me, hey, can you go help me sell something? No one's gonna ask me that. I can sell. Yeah. So people say, well, if you can sell, hey, it looks like you can sell. Ask me to sell. Well, that job is hard for me because I don't like it, right? You think about it. So why am I taking
Right.
on a job that's hard? But the job that I like, whether hey, is to build a cabinet or to go do some gardening, or like for you, you go play tennis or you teach tennis, for example, right? It's easy for you and it's actually fun for you. Hey, I can teach a teenager how to play forehand, backhand, or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
It's easy. Versus, hey, Chris, and you're a smart person, you can code. Okay. Now somebody go, hey, Chris, can you teach me how to code? Then either you going to reveal your true self with, hey, I fucking don't know how to code, or you say pretend I can code, and then you suffer through trying to teach somebody how to code. Go on Google and ChatGPT, whatever.
to get guidance on what to do, then you're probably doing something you don't care about. In all seriousness, you could definitely use ChatGPT if you're something you care about and you're just trying to get a quick start, and then you could go elaborate from that and get 80% of the work done or something along those lines. But hey, I actually
okay.
I actually gotta back on the road here. Yeah, we'll have to wrap up here because I definitely got to get back on the road and get on my way up there real fast. But
yeah,
that was a fun conversation, fun from the road. It's fun to it's a nice change of scenery. I'm looking out at these windmills and soybean patches and corn that hasn't started growing yet, but will be knee high by July is what the phrase is. So
knee high or
yeah,
like head high. I mean, it goes pretty fast.
now it's head high. Like when
you can't see beyond the row because the corn stalks are so high, right? It's probably like 8 or 9 foot. And then you drive through, you're driving through the tunnels.
Oh, for sure. Like that whole field that I was just showing you will be all probably, like you said, 7-8 feet high in a couple months. But no, the original saying was knee high by July, but now with like genetically modified seeds and yields and shit like that. Now it's like probably head high by July.
Head high by July.
All right, that was fun from change of scenery on the road, but yeah, I got to get back on the highway even though I don't want to. So, any final thoughts?
Yeah, practice what you believe, and that all that you need to do. The rest will come.
Agreed. Do what you need to do. Live your life the way you want to live your life. Always, like, is my sentiments. And then talk about it when people actually care. And that's fine. Well, it was good seeing you.
See you tomorrow night.
Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Awesome.
Have a safe trip.